Discover the amazing transformation. Millionaire dad meets homeless woman on Christmas Eve. You won't believe what happens next. Jack Thompson stared out his glassy, high-rise office window, the Chicago skyline a blur of lights and untouchable aspirations. Beneath the shimmering wealth he had effortlessly accumulated, a successful tech firm, a sprawling suburban mansion. Emptiness gnawed at him like a relentless winter wind. The holiday season was approaching, and the holiday cheer echoed through affluent streets. Yet, inside, he felt a deep disquietude, a growing dissonance he could no longer ignore. Just a week ago, Tommy had innocently suggested they volunteer at the local shelter for Christmas. Jack had initially scoffed at the idea. He envisioned the tattered faces, the mothers clutching their children, the struggle in the air, and felt a pang of discomfort. Was this a place for someone of his standing? Yet, as he glimpsed Tommy's eager face, sparkling blue eyes filled with youthful anticipation, Jack hesitated. Could a day of charity turn his reputation into a mere facade of altruism? The weight of his privilege clenched his insides, pulling him into a moral dilemma. As his mind raced through a carousel of justifications and intentions, Jack wrestled with fear. What would his family think if he took Tommy to the shelter? What would his network say? On the cusp of opportunity for redemption, he instead felt shackled by his own insecurities, ensnared in a gilded cage constructed of success. In that moment of internal chaos, he caught his reflection in the glass, a man dressed in a tailored suit, but emotionally and spiritually, just a hollow shell. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The shelter welcomed them with warmth, a bright, imperfect contrast to his cold worries. Families crowded the rooms, laughter mingling with the sounds of pots clattering. As Jack forced a smile, he noticed Sarah. She was a single mother, an artist, whose tough exterior hid dreams dulled by desperation. Their eyes met intermittently, and he sensed a storm brewing within her, a will to combat life's inadequacies with creativity. The tension between them escalated as she guided Tommy through art supplies, explaining kindness through shared activities. Jack absorbed it all, intrigued yet repulsed by the stark separation of their worlds. Did he dare acknowledge his privilege or recognize how he had distanced himself from the very essence of humanity in his pursuit of wealth? Every fiber of his being screamed for action, yet every logical thought urged caution. The laughter of Tommy echoed in his ears, contrasting with the silent burdens Sarah bore. A revelation shattered him deeper. Sarah was his late mentor's estranged daughter. Suddenly, Jack was thrust into a split narrative, caught between guilt and opportunity. How could he reconcile the man he had become with the boy he once was, driven by ambition yet starved for connection? The stakes of his identity rose above career success, morphing the dilemma into an urgent plea for transformation. Jack stood at an inflection point and felt his resolve fracturing like thin ice cracking beneath heavy footsteps. Would he embrace a profound change or retreat into the cocoon of comfort he crafted? The shadow of his mentor's legacy loomed over him, igniting a need for redemption tinged with fear. Just as they exchanged one last glance, Jack realized he was on the brink. His world was set to collide with an unexpected destiny. The clock ticked mercilessly, pushing him closer to a choice that would forever alter his life and Sarah's, harboring questions that would linger long past this holiday season. Jack sat in his car, the engine idling, heart thumping with a rhythm that felt foreign yet exhilarating. The laughter and cheer he had left behind felt like a distant melody. He looked back at the shelter, the vibrant chaos he had momentarily stepped into. It felt like a portal into a world that challenged everything he thought he knew. Tommy, brimming with excitement, babbled about the magic of giving, completely oblivious to Jack's tumultuous internal conflict. Each word from his son twisted deeper into Jack's conscience. He had spent years building an empire, crafting a life dense with success but hollow of meaning. The contrast of his reality to the raw resilience he had witnessed haunted him. Did he have the strength to explore this new territory, or would he retreat to the comfortable shadows of his self-constructed identity? Determination took root as Jack pulled away from the shelter. Instead of returning to his plush office or sprawling home, he drove to a nearby coffee shop. A small, simple place, it buzzed with conversations, the clatter of cups and laughter encouraging against the backdrop of soft music. He ordered a simple black coffee, and as he sat alone in a corner, he realized he was unraveling in the best possible way. With each sip, thoughts coalesced into a plan. What if he could use his resources, his experience, to empower rather than simply overlook? The morning meeting that awaited him tomorrow felt trivial compared to the revelations unfolding in his mind. He envisioned a fundraiser, something designed to elevate the voices of those like Sarah, anchored by a desire to not only donate but truly connect. He began to sketch notes on the napkin, his heart racing with newfound purpose, but who to involve? He couldn't approach this recklessly. How would Sarah respond? Would she see him as another privileged benefactor trying to wash away guilt with charity? The specter of his mentor's legacy loomed larger. He remembered his mentor's relentless pursuit of authenticity, striving to intertwine personal life with professional ambition. Before leaving the cafe, Jack resolved to seek out Sarah, an unexpected alliance that could pave a genuine path toward change. He understood that only through her could he truly grasp the complexity of her world and contribute meaningfully. Could he bear to face her? A confrontation loomed, a discussion that demanded vulnerability, a far cry from the polished, transactional negotiations he was accustomed to. As he exited, a profound sense of urgency engulfed him, and he stepped into the chilly Chicago air, invigorated yet apprehensive. Decision time loomed, but whether this would be a leap of faith or another misstep remained to be seen. It struck him that the potential for transformation was within reach, yet it hinged on his willingness to confront his darkest fears, the fear of failure, of inadequacy, of judgment from those he had spent years impressing. Jack's phone buzzed, a reminder of his responsibilities awaiting him in the pristine glass offices. The world he had curated beckoned him, offering certainty, proven revenue and accolades. Yet, another part of him yearned to leap into the unknown, to forge a new identity where empathy bridged the chasm between success and fulfillment. The car practically drove on autopilot as he navigated back home, his mind racing with plans, dilemmas, and an unwavering sense of purpose. The steps toward real transformation beckoned him, only this time, Jack intended to confront them, to embrace vulnerability over comfort. Still, as he turned the key in his front door, one question wormed its way into his mind: could he truly shatter the barriers between who he had been and who he had the potential to become? The moment for a face-to-face confrontation was fast approaching. As he stepped inside, he found himself wondering if he dared call Sarah. Would he be brave enough to extend a hand, or would fear once again hold him captive? The choice, now more pressing than ever, loomed before him. Jack paced the floor of his spacious living room, the plush carpet absorbing his restless energy. Every tick of the wall clock echoed the tension in his mind. He was surrounded by the accoutrements of success, expensive art lining the walls and high-end furniture, but now, they felt suffocating, reminders of a life he increasingly questioned. A life tethered to wealth and accolades but devoid of genuine purpose. He pulled out his phone, staring at Sarah's number. Each moment of silence felt heavier than the last, the weight of unmade decisions pressed on him fiercely. Would a simple call be enough to bridge the chasm between their worlds? The coffee shop's warmth still lingered in his thoughts, but today, cold reality confronted him again. How did he explain his newfound intentions without coming off as another wealthy man seeking redemption? With a deep breath, he dismissed his doubts and hit dial. As the phone rang, he felt a surge of trepidation. Would Sarah remember him, the man who had stood in her shelter, eyes wide with confusion? Hello. Her voice, laden with a mix of exhaustion and curiosity, jolted him. Sarah, it's Jack. From the shelter, he managed to say, each word feeling both foreign and vital on his tongue. Jack, she hesitated, the pause stretching painfully long. I remember. What's up? Can we meet? I have an idea I want to discuss with you, he ventured, daring to hope. Silence swirled again, pregnant with unanswered questions. What kind of idea? She finally asked, her skepticism palpable even through the phone. It's about a project that could help. He paused, searching for the right words, support those who need it most. But I can't do it without your input. All right, she replied, though he could sense her guarded stance. Where? Jack felt a mixture of relief and fear. He suggested a quiet cafe near her neighborhood, a space devoid of his corporate shadows, where she undoubtedly felt more at home. As he hung up, a rush of adrenaline surged through him. He had taken the first step, now he needed to build on it. The weight of his decision pressed down hard. Jack knew this meant risking his reputation. His carefully constructed identity was built on the very foundations he now sought to dismantle. Would his colleagues or friends understand his new direction? Would they mock his sincerity or worse, dismiss him? Once he arrived at the cafe, the aroma of coffee filled the air, mixing with the soft chatter of patrons, creating a comforting backdrop. He chose a table by the window, glancing at the street, waiting for Sarah. It felt like standing at the edge of a diving board. The water below was murky and unknown, but he felt the pull to leap. When Sarah arrived, she was more direct than he anticipated. Her guarded expression didn't ease as she sat across from him in the tiny cafe. Jack saw the strength behind her eyes, and for a moment, it made him falter. "What's this project about?" she asked, folding her arms tightly across her chest. "I want to create a platform, a way to raise awareness and funds, but also lift your story and others like it. Not just for donations, but to spark real conversations." His conviction thickened the air around him. Sarah eyed him, skepticism morphing into genuine inquiry. "How do you plan to do that?" Jack leaned forward, ready to dive deeper into his vision. He outlined how he intended to leverage his network, utilize social media, and design campaigns that highlighted the individual stories. His heart raced with the potential he saw in the exchange. But Sarah didn't bat an eye. It was still just talk. "What do I gain from doing this with you? What's in it for me?" she pressed, challenging him in ways he had not expected. "We can create meaningful impact," Jack asserted, feeling the urgency build. "But I realize now that this is about more than just the project. I want you involved because he took a breath, fighting against the fear that constricted him. "I need to learn. I need to understand. My wealth has blinded me, and the privilege of my life has left me distant from understanding real struggle." A loaded silence filled the space between them, the essence of genuine vulnerability hanging in the air. Did Jack truly mean it? Would he be willing to see through her eyes? As Sarah processed his words, a flicker of something, curiosity or maybe hope, crossed her expression. The moment felt cataclysmic, a catalytic choice that could alter them both deeply, but then she leaned back, a shadow crossing her face. "If you want to connect, it's going to take more than words, Jack. Are you really ready for that?" Her challenge ignited a new urgency within him. The pressure of his previous life began to dissolve. A chance to redefine purpose lay in front of him. The momentum shifted, and Jack felt himself teetering on the brink of a transformative leap. Would he muster the courage to face the depths of vulnerability and embrace the unfolding challenge? "Absolutely," he said, each word ringing with newfound determination, yet the real question lingered, echoing in the back of his mind: what kind of man would he become if he did? As Sarah's penetrating gaze held his, Jack pondered if this transformation could lead him into even greater unknowns, or if it would unravel everything he had worked so hard to build. Jack's heart pounded as he awaited Sarah's response, her expression a blend of skepticism and burgeoning interest. The gravity of her question weighed heavily on him. What did it mean to be ready? He had spent years sculpting an image of success, yet here he was, bearing his soul in a way that felt both terrifying and liberating. "I get that you're sincere, Jack," she said, her voice steady. "But sincerity means action. How do I know it's not just a momentary thing for you? What happens when it gets hard?" Her words struck a chord, ricocheting in his mind. Jack had skirted failure in his professional life, surrounded by accolades that affirmed his worth. But now, faced with the prospect of genuine engagement, he was terrified of the discomfort it could inflict. "Then I guess I'll have to prove it," he replied, his resolve solidifying. I've spent my life avoiding discomfort. Maybe it's time I face it head on. He knew the journey could be complex, riddled with revelations about his own biases and ignorance. Proving it will take more than a project outline, Jack. It might take time, patience, and facing what you may have ignored for a long time. Her piercing gaze challenged him further. Jack nodded, absorbing her words. This was exactly what he had hoped for, a confrontation that would hold him accountable. But did he truly grasp the weight of that accountability? I'm prepared for the hard conversations, he stated, yet as he spoke, doubt crept in. What did that commitment really entail? He had the resources to launch a project, but could he embrace the rigorous honesty required to handle stories of struggle? Digging deeper, he pressed, what do you want from me, Sarah? Help me understand how we can actually connect beyond this cafe. Sarah relaxed her stiff posture slightly, her eyes softening. I want you to spend time with the people you aim to help. Hear their stories without the filter of your privilege. You can't just swoop in with money and expect understanding to follow. It's about building relationships. Her suggestion ignited something within him. Could he really step out of his comfort zone and into those spaces he had so long avoided? The world he inhabited had been comfortable but hollow, a series of meetings, deals, and power plays that left little room for empathy. I can do that, he said, feeling the weight of his words. What would that look like? Start by volunteering, she proposed, glancing at the patrons around them. Shadow me in the shelter, hear their stories, meet them where they are. No high-rise buildings, no glamorous networking events. Just raw humanity. Jack felt a thrill at the prospect, but it was mingled with apprehension. How far was he willing to go into this world? The notion of facing the unvarnished truth about struggling lives directly filled him with a mix of excitement and fear. Okay. I'll do it, he declared, a newfound energy coursing through him. Let us start next week, she agreed, a hint of a smile breaking her steely demeanor. But be ready for moments that will challenge you. It can get uncomfortable. With those words, Jack felt the boundaries of his previous life blur further. The stakes had risen, yet he was eager to disentangle himself from the constraints of his past. As they parted, Jack's mind raced. He knew this was more than a project, it was a chance for genuine transformation, for learning where he had previously assumed. But as he stepped outside the cafe, the crisp air biting at his resolve, one thought persisted: could he truly confront the depths of his privilege and emerge a different man? The following days would hold the answers, and he couldn't shake the nagging uncertainty about the journey ahead. He knew the commitment would demand everything from him: vulnerability, humility, strength. What awaited him lurked in the shadows of his own understanding. The moments he would face next week loomed ahead, ripe with promise and unknown challenges. Would he emerge whole, or would the truth shatter the carefully constructed world he clung to? As the week unfolded, the anxiety that had gripped Jack began to morph into a potent mix of anticipation and determination. Each morning, he awoke with a sense of purpose, yet doubt shadowed his steps. What lay ahead in that shelter? Conversations that might expose the weaknesses he'd spent a lifetime masking. By the time he arrived at the shelter, his palms were sweaty, and the air felt thick with expectations, his own and those of the people he came to meet. Nerves danced in the pit of his stomach as he spotted Sarah at the entrance, welcoming guests with a warm smile that somehow felt all too foreign to him. He approached her, trying to project calmness, though his throat felt constricted. First day on the job, he quipped half-heartedly, unsure if laughter even belonged here. Let us make it less about the job and more about real connections, she replied, her tone light but her gaze serious. Come on, let us meet some people. They moved inside, the bustling surroundings filled with voices, laughter, and the sounds of people providing help to one another. In a stark contrast to the polished boardrooms he was used to, the shelter pulsated with rawness and authenticity that rattled him. Sarah guided him to a circle of individuals huddled together, sharing stories over a modest meal. Jack felt an inexplicable urge to retreat, to shield himself from their experiences, yet his legs moved forward, propelling him into this uncomfortable reality he had chosen to confront. "Everyone, this is Jack," Sarah announced. "He is here to learn and listen." The faces that turned toward him were a tapestry of life, hope interspersed with hardship, joy mingled with pain. Jack couldn't shake the instinct to hold back, to remain an observer when the weight of their conditions pressed against him. He cleared his throat, willing the words to come, "I want to understand how I can help." A woman in her 40s, her stern yet gentle eyes resembling those of a hawk, responded with a guarded warmth, "Then listen to our stories and don't just hear them. Understand where we are coming from." Jack felt the heat rise to his cheeks, but he nodded. Here, sincerity became action that demanded he step beyond his own privilege and acknowledge another's pain. Over the next hour, he listened as each person shared their reality struggles with addiction, homelessness, and the feeling of isolation. What struck him most was not just their struggles but their resilience. They laughed, joked, shared small victories. In those moments, Jack began to catch glimpses of the human spirit that the transactions of his life had kept at bay. As the day wore on, a sense of discomfort began to bubble within him. How could he have overlooked the relationships that tethered communities together while he chased after success like a high-stakes game? The woman, whom he learned was named Rita, caught him off guard as she cracked a joke that sent ripples of laughter through the group. Her resilience clashed against his sheltered perception of vulnerability. Wasn't vulnerability supposed to mean defeat? Jack began to realize how misguided he had been, caught in a cycle of success that had shielded him from the realities around him. With the laughter echoing in his mind, he recognized a nascent curiosity igniting. "Tell me more," he said, surprising even himself with the eagerness in his voice. "What keeps you going?" His question hung in the air, palpable and unguarded. In that moment, he felt a shift. It was an invitation to engage, not just from a place of support but from shared humanity. They responded, an electric hum of voices intertwining, each story layered with hope that transcended their struggles. As Jack listened, a realization dawned upon him: the definitions he had constructed around success became untenable against the backdrop of real life. Tomorrow would bring him deeper into this world, and with that awareness came a sense of urgency. What did it mean to change fundamentally? How would he reconcile the lessons of his privilege with the gripping realities he was meeting head-on? His commitment had morphed from mere words into a mission of understanding, and he teetered on the brink of a transformative journey that might redefine everything he thought he knew. But beneath the burgeoning excitement lurked the darkness of confrontation. How would he face those truths about his past and the changes they demanded from him? The time had come to face his own shadows, and Jack was not entirely sure he was ready for what lay ahead. The next day, Jack woke with a restlessness that coiled in his chest. The sun filtered through the blinds, brightening his small apartment, yet he felt a heaviness in the air. He dressed mechanically, his thoughts tangled in anticipation. The laughter from the night before echoed in frustration against the walls of his conditioned mind. Stepping into the bustling street, he noticed how the rhythm of city life seemed detached from his own inner tempo. With each step toward the shelter, he mulled over the singular question: how could he genuinely connect with people whose lives he'd only glimpsed from behind a glass pane? As he entered the shelter, the familiar scent of coffee and bread wrapped around him, grounding his thoughts. Sarah met him at the door, her expression a delicate balance of encouragement and challenge. "Ready for day 2?" she asked, her eyes twinkling. Jack forced a smile, though the corners of his mouth betrayed him his thoughts were wrestling with the looming discomfort. He was fueled not by certainty, but by a growing desire to confront the dissonance he felt between his old life and this new reality. Today was different. Sarah led him into a common room, where he caught sight of familiar faces. Rita, with her piercing gaze, greeted him with an encouraging nod. It stirred something deep within Jack. The nuances of vulnerability began to fascinate him. He approached them willingly this time, seeking to immerse himself rather than stay on the periphery. "Yesterday was eye-opening," Jack began, hesitating as he sought the right words. "I realized how essential storytelling is for understanding each other." He glanced at Rita, who had inspired courage in him since their first interaction. Her expression softened. "It's good to hear you're willing to engage. What story do you bring to the table? He paused, the memory of past accomplishments rushing to mind. But as he watched the faces of those who had opened their lives to him, he hesitated. That didn't feel right, and he sensed the truth about his challenges rising to the surface. I have a lot of stories about business deals and success, but they seem so empty compared to what you've shared. I'm trying to learn the real stories, the ones that actually mean something, he admitted, his voice steady and sincere. Rita smiled softly, understanding. Stories are currency here, she said, her voice layered with empathy. What we do matters because of how we connect. Your willingness to learn is a powerful story of its own. At that moment, Jack felt a wave of warmth crash over him, a lightness he hadn't experienced before. He realized he didn't need to externalize his success, he could express his growth through the authenticity of vulnerability. Then maybe I'll share a struggle, he said, his tone softer, revealing a hint of trepidation. After everything I've achieved, I still often feel inadequate, as if I'm chasing shadows of expectations that uphold no real value. I wonder if this journey will ever fill that void. The room fell silent, and Jack felt their collective gaze pierce through him. Brutal honesty hung thick in the air, but instead of caving in, his resolve hardened. Your stories resonate more than you know, Rita replied softly. It's the struggle that connects us, not the outcome. You're already on the cusp of discovering who you are beyond your wealth. Her words struck a chord, igniting the embers of a transformative realization within Jack. Perhaps his real journey was not about eradicating feelings of inadequacy but facing them, dissecting the scars buried deep beneath layers of achievement. An idea began to take shape at the back of his mind. How could he use the tools he had honed in his past profession to help foster connections? Was there a way to bridge the gap between his former life and the truths he unveiled? As the day progressed, conversations flourished, and Jack found himself sharing pieces of advice from his world, a balance of learning and teaching that felt invigorating. Each story wove a thread, knitting together increasingly opaque barriers. By the end of the day, he stood on the precipice of something larger than himself. The urgency to initiate change surged within him, creating a pulse of energy he had long forgotten, yet, lurking in the corners of his mind, the shadows of doubt returned. Was he equipped to transform this newfound insight into actionable steps? Would his past ever release its grip on him? As he prepared to leave, a voice called out from behind. It was Sarah. You seem different today. Ready for what tomorrow brings? Jack turned, anticipation flooding his thoughts. It's time to face deeper truths. I just don't know how. Then let us uncover them together. And with those words, the horizon of his journey shifted once more. What awaited him felt daunting, but as apprehension mingled with exhilaration, one truth became indelible: his path toward transformation had only just begun. Each encounter would soon demand deeper personal confrontations, challenges that would force him to reevaluate everything he thought he knew about himself. But was he truly ready to confront the entirety of his past? Jack woke the next morning with a simmering resolve. The heaviness from the previous days had morphed into a focused determination, a need to delve deeper into the chasm that had formed between his past life and the person he was becoming. Each breath filled his lungs with expectation, pushing him to confront the lingering uncertainties that haunted him. As he arrived at the shelter, he was struck by the purposeful energy that surrounded him. It felt different today, electric and alive. He paused at the entrance, absorbing the atmosphere, realizing that he no longer felt like an outsider peering in. Instead, there was an unspoken invitation urging him forward, to break the cocoon of his former self. Jack! Over here! Sarah waved him over, her enthusiasm brightening his thoughts. Today was not just another day, today would be a crucible for the ideas brewing inside him. He joined her, feeling the gentle jab of excitement in the pit of his stomach. Today, we're focusing on skill sharing, she said with a sparkle in her eye. I want you to lead a small workshop. What do you think? His heart raced, pumping adrenaline through him. While the thought of taking charge filled him with anxiety, the prospect of sharing what he had learned in the business realm beckoned him like a lighthouse in the fog. What should I focus on? Think about what you can teach something that bridges your prior life with their needs. Jack was struck by the gravity of her words. Teach. Share. Those actions implied vulnerability, a willingness to strip away layers of pretense. Would he be able to select a topic that genuinely resonated? As Jack paced through the common area, he anchored his thoughts on the intersection of business strategy and personal growth. He recalled moments from his past where mentorship transformed his trajectory, where tangible tools had sparked profound revelations. What if he could offer that kind of wisdom to the people around him? The revelation lit a fire within. With a deep breath, he addressed the small gathering gathered for his workshop. The initial jitters ignited an urgency in his voice. We all have something to learn from each other, and I want to share how I navigated failure to find success. It's not about the outcomes, it's about how we choose to respond. Let us talk about building resilience. A murmur of interest rippled through the group. As Jack shared stories from his ascent, his missteps, and how resilience had shaped his character, he saw their eyes spark with recognition. His personal narrative intertwined with theirs, creating a thread of commonality that transformed the intimidated room into a shared space of revelation. Through their interaction, he discovered something about himself that had been buried for too long: an ability to connect and inspire. He was no longer just the millionaire, he was a fellow traveler seeking understanding. It gave him fresh purpose, an awakening that propelled him forward into these new depths of engagement. In response to Jack's vulnerability, someone in the audience stood. It was Rita, the very embodiment of resilience. Your story resonates. But how do we apply this resilience practically? What does it look like in day-to-day life? Her question was a clarion call, striking at the heart of his purpose. Resilience is about perspective, he began, feeling the swell of determination wash over him. It's a toolkit of habits that build within us, like setting small achievable goals, learning from setbacks, or even creating support systems with those around you. The room transformed, with others sharing their experiences and their interpretations of resilience, each contribution a vital thread in an evolving tapestry of understanding. With their insights, Jack became acutely aware of something powerful. His role was not just a teacher but a fellow learner, absorbing the wisdom around him just as much as he was giving. At the end of the session, the warmth that filled the room solidified the newfound connection formed between him and those present. It was liberating, and he understood now that this was more than a professional challenge. It was about enriching each other's lives, something profoundly more rewarding than accolades ever could be. As they wrapped up, Sarah approached him, pride evident in her demeanor. You did well, Jack. You opened a door for many here. I didn't expect it to feel this fulfilling, he admitted, still riding the high from their engagement. But amid this exhilaration lingered an undeniable truth: he had only scratched the surface of his potential, and the journey ahead demanded even greater introspection. What's your next step? She asked, her curiosity piqued. I need to dig deeper. I want to explore what resilience truly means for me and for each of us. There are layers yet to uncover, he replied, a mix of excitement and trepidation tightening in his chest. Then let us unearth those layers together. And with that, Jack realized that the road ahead was laden with dangerous revelations. Would he be prepared to face the complexities that lay beneath his pursuit of connection? The path was fraught with challenges that would test the very core of who he was meant to become. Jack awoke the next morning, a fresh sense of urgency propelling him from the comfort of his bed. The exhilaration from the workshop lingered, igniting his motivation to delve deeper into the layers of resilience. He glanced in the mirror and saw not just a man rebuilding himself, but a relentless seeker grappling with the scars of his past while aiming for a more profound connection with those around him. As he prepared for the day ahead, Jack felt an unexpected weight pressing on his chest. It was a reminder of the complexities he had yet to confront. He knew he had merely skimmed the surface of what resilience could mean in his own life, especially as he thought about the workshop's impact. Perhaps it was time to dig into his past failures, not just the stories that inspired others but the raw moments that had nearly broken him. Could he transform those difficult experiences into lessons that not only influenced his own growth but also paved ways for others to find their strength? Arriving at the shelter, Jack was met with the same electric energy he had felt the day before, but today it hummed with a different cadence. It felt almost like a call, directing him to a new stage of his journey. He found Sarah already at the common area, her bright smile genuine and infectious. "Good morning, Jack. Ready for another day of sharing?" she inquired, her enthusiasm brightening the room. "I think I need more than just sharing today," Jack replied, surprise bubbling in his chest. "I'm thinking about leading a deeper session, one that uncovers how we can confront our failures head-on." "That sounds like a powerful approach. Are you willing to share your own experiences?" Sarah's curiosity danced in her eyes. "I need to," he confessed. "I think it's through my vulnerabilities that I can connect even deeper. It's not just about resilience but facing what lies beneath it." As the two prepared for the next interaction, Jack's heart raced. The notion of exposing his failings made him feel raw and exposed, but he also recognized that it held transformative potential not just for himself, but for the people who had begun to form a circle of trust around him. It was a risk, but one that felt necessary. The group assembled again, and Jack felt the intensity rising within him. He opened with a quick recap of his last session, then shifted gears, his voice firm yet laden with vulnerability. "Today, I want to talk about failure, not the polished stories of triumph, but the messy, painful parts we often hide away." He watched as faces shifted, eyebrows raised in curiosity and perhaps concern. "When I lost everything, I hit rock bottom. I felt ashamed, unworthy, but it was there that I began to understand something crucial. Every setback is an invitation to rise, to learn, and most deeply, to connect." Jack shared moments that were deeply personal, the days when he had struggled to find himself, faced the consequences of his choices, and wrestled with feeling invisible. Each recollection wasn't just a tale of regret. It was a journey that held the promise of growth, an odyssey through sorrow that illuminated the path towards acceptance and understanding. Rita, ever thoughtful, leaned in afterwards. "If failure is such a gift, how do we shift our perspective when faced with the fear that comes with it?" Her question reverberated in Jack's mind. He could feel the weight of unspoken fears hanging like a fog in the room. "It starts with acknowledging the fear," he replied, his voice resolute. "Understanding it can serve us, rather than paralyzing us. We have to embrace the discomfort it brings. It's a teacher, not a hindrance." Amidst the dialogue, Jack noticed something profound unfolding. The group was no longer passive listeners, they were becoming active participants, eager to share their own narratives of pain and growth, each revealing integral pieces of their existence. A wave of hope surged through him, a deeper connection blossoming, a realization that they were all interconnected through this shared vulnerability. At the session's end, as gratitude and enthusiasm radiated through the room, a ripple of change seemed to take root within him, igniting the embers of possibility. As he stepped away, Sarah approached him, her eyes wide with excitement. "You did it again, Jack. You opened up another layer for everyone." "We all have layers," Jack remarked, a newfound resolve settling in. But amid the applause and warmth, a familiar unease cloaked him. Was this truly the right path, or just an escape? Was his vulnerability fortifying the sanctuary he wished to build, or was it opening portals into worlds of discomfort he wasn't yet ready to confront? As these questions danced in his mind, Jack understood that the journey of resilience was just beginning. Would he find the strength to face what awaited him as he unearthed these layers? The complexities of his heart and past beckoned him to confront the darkest shadows of himself. What would happen when he finally opened those doors? Jack's days in the shelter began to bustle with an infectious energy, but beneath the surface, he wrestled with a persistent apprehension. Each session revealed new stories, tears, and laughter that echoed with profound beauty and sorrow. He felt the weight of responsibility intensifying, an unspoken pact between him and those who had begun to confide in him. They looked to him for guidance, but could he provide it while still feeling the pangs of his own uncertainties? The next session loomed over him like an impending storm. Jack paced in his small apartment, rehearsing his approach. What if the group found his vulnerability insincere? What if he opened old wounds that he wasn't ready to confront? In trying to empower them, was he risking his own fragility? The questions gnawed at him, stifling his focus. As he drove to the shelter, the familiar streets blurred into a mix of thought and anxiety. Arriving, he stepped into the common area and was instantly swept up by the warmth radiating from the group. Their faces filled with anticipation and camaraderie reassured him, even as his insides churned. "Hey, Jack!" They called out in unison, a chorus of encouragement that momentarily soothed his tangle of nerves. "Let us dive right in today," he began, determined to assuage the heaviness that sat on his chest. But as he spoke, he could feel cracks forming in his armor. "I want to explore not just our failures, but how we feel about them, how we perceive ourselves in those moments of despair." As he opened the floor, a man named Tom, often reticent, surprised everyone by speaking up. "I feel like I'm always failing. My whole life has been a mess, and I don't know how to get out of this rut." Jack felt an instant connection to Tom's words, a kinship born from a shared understanding of despair. "I get it," Jack replied, his heartbeat echoing in his ears, the vulnerability of his own past clawing at him. "But what if, in this failure, there's an opportunity to redefine ourselves?" He carved out space for everyone to share their thoughts, a symbiotic healing unfolding. Each story interwove narratives of pain, but beneath the surface, threads of hope began to emerge. As voices rose and fell, he realized they were weaving a tapestry of resilience, each participant stitching together lessons from their darkest hours. A question began to simmer within him: how could he guide them to see failure not merely as an obstacle but as a profound rite of passage? After the session, Sarah cornered him with an earnest gaze. "Jack, you have a talent for making people feel understood. But are you taking your own advice? You spoke about transformation, but I sense you're holding back." Her words pierced through him, igniting sparks of realization. He had preached about vulnerability and connection, yet he stood on the periphery of his own truth. Could it be fear, or something deeper, that stalled his complete surrender? "I think I'm still learning," he admitted, the raw honesty surprising even him. "Maybe those layers I'm asking everyone to peel away I haven't fully embraced my own." Already, he could feel the path getting thornier. It summoned a new level of commitment, to not only guide but to acknowledge his own struggles in real time. "Then let us embrace it together," Sarah offered, a kind smile playing on her lips. Jack felt the burden of his self-imposed isolation lifting. Yet, as he mulled over the rawness of exposing his vulnerabilities in front of the group, a chilling sense of dread settled within. What if confronting his past shattered the very foundation he sought to build? Walking away from the session, he could almost hear the echoes of his own fears whispering, surfacing questions that threatened to drown him. Would revealing his innermost struggles strengthen their connection, or fracture it entirely? There, in the solitude of his thoughts, Jack stood on the precipice of a powerful transformation. The time had come to not only guide others, but to face the shadows he had long kept hidden. Would he summon the courage to share his darkest moments, or retreat into safer territory? As he contemplated what lay ahead, Jack realized the next step of his journey was not only about the stories he shared, but the courage to confront the very failures that had shaped him, the ones still lurking in the corners of his mind. With one deep breath, he accepted the challenge before him, wondering if his next revelation would be the pivotal moment he so desperately sought. Jack stared at the cluttered desk in his small apartment, the remnants of his past tangible yet distant. The shadows in the corners echoed with memories of urgency, confusion, and unyielding fear over failures yet unexamined. Today, however, he felt something shift, a profound sense of readiness to confront the truths he had previously avoided. His gaze caught the framed photograph of Tommy, his son, a reminder of the innocence that ignited his journey. How could Jack lead by example if he remained shackled by the weight of his past? As he arrived at the shelter, a familiar buzz of community welcomed him. The scene felt alive, laughter weaved through conversations as people shared snippets of their lives. This wasn't just another day of engagement, it was a moment of reckoning. Jack took a deep breath, noting how the anxiety that curled in his chest began to unravel. Sarah greeted him with a smile full of encouragement, her spirit infectious, charging the air between them. Are you ready? She asked, her eyes sparkling with the promise of meaningful connection. Jack nodded, his heart racing. Ready to be real. They settled into the circle of participants, and Jack could feel the weight of their attention resting upon him. Today is about authenticity, he began, his voice steadying as he looked around the room. I want to share some of my failures, the real ones, the ones that shaped my life, and perhaps, in doing that, I can reveal something more valuable. The room became silent, each individual attuned to the importance of what was about to unfold. Jack felt fear mingle with determination. This was the moment where he would not only reveal his vulnerabilities but also invite others to do so. I spent years building a successful business. To everyone, I was a millionaire, a drop in the luxury pool of life, he began. But I lost it all, faced bankruptcy. I thought my identity was tied to my success. I never realized how much I had ignored the real connections that sustained us. I crawled back from that, felt despair, but it opened a window to understanding. A murmur of recognition spread across the room as he shared the darker aspects of his journey, moments of isolation, despair, and the churning emptiness that success had hidden. Each word resonated, revealing that success without connection was a hollow seed. Jack spoke about finding strength in his vulnerabilities, how confronting the deepest fears had become a liberating passage for growth. And as he shared, he witnessed a transformation in the room, a softening of edges, a collective sigh of relief, as hearts began to recognize parallels in his struggles and their own. Rita, emboldened by his courage, stood up. It's inspiring to hear this. But how do we build trust over those vulnerabilities? What if sharing brings up more pain? Jack smiled. Pain can cleave us, but it can also be fertile ground for connection. What we've learned through this struggle becomes the foundation upon which we can stand together. Our collective experiences aren't chains, they can be bridges. In that moment, the barriers he feared would remain in place began to dissolve. The group leaned in, eager to voice their own realities, their own stories, a chorus of voices sharing not only pain but also the resilience that emerged from it. They shared tears and laughter equally, forging an unbreakable bond through the narratives that danced wildly in the air. At the end of the session, Sarah approached him, her eyes shimmering with pride. You did it again, Jack. You showed everyone that vulnerability is a strength. A wave of fulfillment washed over him. He felt grounded, anchored to the truth he had uncovered. This was more than a self-help initiative, it was the dawning of a new chapter in his life. I never understood how validation from others could fuel growth, he said, his voice thick with gratitude. Each of you shared something today that changed me. This circle isn't just a project, it's a community. You taught me resilience just as much as I intended to teach. As he stepped out of the shelter into the cool evening air, a profound realization unfolded within him. He had transformed not into the millionaire defined by wealth but into a man defined by connection and honesty. The shadows once looming over his past now illuminated his path forward. He was ready for deeper relationships, the complexities of engagement that bring expansive growth. Jack pulled out his phone, opened a blank message, and typed a note to Sarah, let us schedule more workshops. There is something vital here, a community in transformation. This was more than mere support, it was about creating lasting relationships rooted in mutual understanding. With each passing moment, he felt an elevated sense of purpose, a commitment to embrace the teachings wrapped in each vulnerability, and to fortify the connections that would withstand future storms. Jack finally realized he had achieved what he had long sought, true personal fulfillment. What lay ahead was not a continuation of the life he once knew, but an expansive evolution where individual experience transformed genuine relationships. He had crossed the threshold into the extraordinary, the courageous engagement with the life that beckoned him to bridge the gap between achievement and genuine humanity. Now was the time to celebrate this newfound recognition. Jack was no longer just successful in business, he had conquered the art of becoming human. And with that sense of clarity, he leaned into the horizon, ready for what came next. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. You need to subscribe now, this is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it truly makes a difference in our reach. Comment your reactions and theories about Jack's journey and this powerful ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. This is vital for anyone confronting their own stories.